Hi all, welcome to Tech Forum. In this video, let us see the details on servlets in AEM. A servlet is a Java programming language class that is used to extend the capabilities of servers that host applications accessed by means of a request response programming model. All servlets must implement the servlet interface, which defines the lifecycle methods. The HTTP servlet class provides methods such as doGet, doPost for handling HTTP specific services. One of the major difference of Sling servlet container comparing to the regular servlet container is the regular servlet container calls the init lifecycle method exactly once after instantiating the servlet. The container instantiates and initializes the servlets together. With Sling, the instantiation and initialization are split. The provider of the servlet service takes care of creating the servlet instance. The Sling servlet resolver picks up the servlet services and initializes and destroys them as needed. So Sling has not way of making sure a servlet is only initialized and destroyed once in the lifetime of the servlet object instance. Servlets are used to expose a URL to the outside world. In AEM, the servlets can be registered through OSJ annotations. These are the types of servlets in AEM. The first one is Sling safe method servlet. This is the base class for read-only servlets in Sling. This is the implementation of HTTP servlets, provides better extendability. This supports only read methods, example get, options, trace and head. So we can override the required methods in our custom servlet. The next one is Sling all method servlet. This is the base class for data modifying servlets in Sling. This class extends the Sling safe method servlet by support for the post, put and delete methods. We can override the required methods in our custom servlet. The last one is opting servlet. Opting servlet interface further refines the servlet request resolution process. It has only one method, accepts, which returns a boolean. If the method returns true, then only the servlet will be selected for processing. Opting servlet can be used to select the servlet based on some additional criteria. Example, input path or parameters. Opting servlet is not recommended as it complicates the request processing, also less transparent what is going on during a request. Also it prevents the optimizations like caching the script resolution in an optimal manner. Let us see some of the additional classes and interfaces. The first one is Sling HTTP servlet request. This extends javax.servlet.http servlet request. Defines the interface to provide client request information to the servlet. This enables the additional methods related to Sling resources, example get resource resolver, etc. This enables various parameter accessor methods, example get request parameter. Sling framework process the input data and map to the accessor methods. The next one is Sling HTTP servlet response. This extends javax.servlet.http servlet response. Defines the interface to assist a servlet in creating and sending the response to the client. This interface is currently empty, means it won't have any method, but it have all the method extended from HTTP servlet response class. Let us now see some of the properties required to register the servlets in Sling. The first one is Sling.servlet.resource types. The resource type supported by the servlet because every content is associated to a resource type. So you can specify the resource type for which the servlet should be responding. The property value must be either be a single string or it can be array. Then the next one is Sling.servlet.selectors. So the request URL selectors supported by the servlet. You can specify multiple selectors. Then the next one is extensions. The URL extensions supported by this specific servlet. Even here also you can specify multiple extensions. The next one is methods. The request methods supported by the servlet. If the method is not specified, the servlet is only registered for handling get and head request. The next one is Sling.servlet.paths. A list of absolute paths under which the servlet is accessible as a resource. Example /bin./sample1. The resource types or paths or both of them should be configured to enable the servlet. The next one is sling.servlet.resource supertype. This specifies the resource supertype indicating which previously registered servlet intercept the request if matches. The value must be single string. The default supertype is sling/servlet/default. Let us now see the servlet registration types. The first one is registering by path. So here we are registering the servlet through a specific path. Example, sling.servlet.path bin/sample servlet. So the servlet is going to be accessible through this specific path bin/sample servlet. The next one is registering by resource type. Here we are registering the servlet through the resource type. Sling.servlet.resource types. I am saying vRetail component structure page. Any page uses this specific resource type can access the servlet. Servlet is mapped based on the sling:(resource type property of the node. Some of the issues with path-based servlets are cannot be access controlled using the default JCR repository ACLs, but resource type servlets can be controlled. Only the users having the access to the resource can access the resource type servlet. Also, no suffix handling when bound by path. Another one is mapping is not transparent because it's a path base is not bound to any resource, so the mapping is not transparent. The next one is the allowed paths should be specific. The random paths won't work. The path prefixes should be defined in Apache Sling servlet/script resolver and error handler. So the path prefixes are predefined like /bin/services or /apps. So we can't use the random path. Also, whitelisting is required to allow the path based servlets in dispatcher. So AEM will be front-ended with dispatcher. So dispatcher should allow those paths. So also it's not recommended to allow the prefixes like /bin or /services. Let us now see the details on servlet resolution. A service listener, Sling servlet resolver, listens for the OSI services implementing javax.servlet.servlet interface and register the servlet. Both Sling safe method servlet and Sling all method servlets implements javax.servlet.servlet interface. When a request hits the server, the Sling servlet resolver again executes Sling script resolution procedure to choose the right servlet to respond to the request based on the available informations like path, selectors, extensions, etc. The servlet wins if matches the following criteria. The one with the highest number of matching selectors plus extensions, the one which is registered to a resource type closer to the requested one, then the one with the highest service.ranking property. In case of an opting servlet not matching, the next candidate is being used. For example, if there is no servlet matching with specific resource type or path, the default servlet is used. The servlet resolver utility can be used to test the servlet resolution. Let us now see how to enable a servlet in Sling. Use the following annotations to define a servlet. So the first one is at component. So you are creating a component, then service, and we are saying servlet.class. This designate this as a servlet. Then the properties, Sling servlet name, you can specify name, then supported methods, then supported resource types. Here we are specifying a default resource type, or you can specify the custom resource types also. Then servlet selectors, I am just saying default, then servlet extension HTML. So in the second one difference is here we are defining a path based servlet. Here I am saying bin/demo path based servlet. So I am not defining a resource type here, but you can define both resource type and path or either one, but at least one should be there to enable the servlet. Then extension I am specifying HTML. So here even again you can define multiple resource types, selectors, extensions. Just to copy the same line again, repeat that and change the values. So like that you can define multiple selectors, multiple extensions and multiple resource types. Next one is extend Sling safe method servlet or Sling all method servlet based on your requirement, read only servlet or data modification servlet. Next, override the required HTTP methods, do get, do post, etc. and enable the required logic. To override any out-of-the-box servlet, define a custom servlet with same out-of-the-box servlet properties and define higher ranking for the custom servlet, so that custom servlet will be executed instead of out-of-the-box servlet. Also, you can define the resource type based servlet for specific node types. Example, CQ:page. In this case, the servlet will be executed for all the page requests. The resource type with sling/servlet/default is selected if no servlet for the current resource type can be found. Even you can define a servlet with sling/servlet/default resource type and specific selector and extensions so that the servlet can be invoked for all the resources. Let us quickly see the demo now. I have created a couple of servlets under the core module. The first one is demo default resource servlet. This is based on the default resource type, sling servlet default resource types. This servlet responds to all the resources. Again, I specified some servlet name, then sling servlet methods. So I am setting it as get. The servlet also respond to this selectors default, then extension HTML. Even you can define multiple methods, resource types, selectors and extensions by just duplicating this specific configuration and specify the additional values. So if you want to duplicate multiple selectors, so just copy this and paste it again, then specify a different selectors. The servlet extending from this one, sling safe method servlet. So it means it's a read-only servlet. It will only support read-only HTTP methods. The servlet can be accessed like this: content, weekend, USEN, then any resource. But I am using this FAQs. Default is the selector, then HTML is the extension. Then it will respond with this specific data. As the servlet is registered with the default resource type, even this specific asset URL will execute the same servlet. So because here we are using default as the selector and extension as HTML. The next one is demo JSON servlet. So let me open that. Here I am defining a resource type based servlet, and the resource type is weekend components page, and the weekend as selector and extension as JSON. Here one different, while accessing the servlet, the JCR content path should be added, as the resource type is associated with the JCR content node, not with the page node. This is same for even a text extension, but HTML extension works with page node directly, so that we can see it next. So we should be accessing like the content weekend USEN. Then because EN is based on this weekend components page resource type, then we should be specifying JCR content, then the selector, then the extension JSON. The next one is demo node type based servlet. Let me open that. Here I am defining a resource type servlet based on the node type CQ page. So, but we should not be specifying CQ:page, but we should be specifying CQ/page. Then the selector as page, extension as HTML. This servlet responds to all pages with the selector as page and extension as HTML. The servlet can be accessed like this: content weekend USEN. EN is the page node. Then dot page. This is the selector, and HTML as the extension. The next one is demo opting servlet. Let me open that. Here I am defining a resource type based servlet with the selector as opting and the extension as HTML. Here I am implementing this opting servlet interface and the corresponding accepts method. So here accepts method return true only for the request start with the path starts with content/weekend/US/en FAQs. For all the remaining requests it will return the false. Means this servlet responds only for the request with a path starts with content weekend USEN FAQs. Remaining requests this servlet won't respond. The servlet can be accessed like this: weekend USEN, because we are using this resource type, then FAQs.opting.html. Next one is path based servlet. Let me open that. Here I am defining a path based servlet. The path is /bin/demo path based servlet. The servlet can be accessed like this: /bin demo path based servlet. Otherwise everything is same. Next one is resource based servlet. Here I am defining a resource type based servlet with the weekend as selector and extension as HTML. This is the resource type, weekend components page. The servlet can be accessed like this: content weekend USEN dot the selector weekend, then dot HTML, that is the extension. Here one different is for JSON extension, we should be using the JCR content node also to access the servlet. But here, as this is the HTML extension, so no need of JSR content node. Here en is of resource type weekend component / page. Any page with this same resource type can invoke this servlet. Next one is dynamic servlet. Here we are registering the servlet based on the dynamic data. So example methods, resource types, selectors and extension. The servlet is registered based on the dynamic values configured through the OSA console. Here we are using DS annotations to define the dynamic servlet. Defining a object class definition with all the required attribute definitions for servlet registration. So if you see here attribute definition, Sling servlet selectors. So default one is dynamic. We can modify that through the console. Then same thing for resource types, it's blank. Right now the servlet won't respond to any request because we are not specifying any resource types, but we can configure the multiple resource types through console. Same thing for methods, default is get. Then extensions, default is HTML, but we can add multiple extensions also. We are just designate, we are specifying here to this config class, config dot this class. The last one is run mode specific servlet. So here I am defining a path based servlet and specifying this configuration policy as require. So because of this configuration policy as require, the OSA config for this servlet should be created to make this servlet active. By default, the servlet will be in unsatisfied state. To enable the servlet for specific run mode, we can create the OSA config for that specific run mode so that the servlet will be enabled for that specific run mode and disabled for remaining run modes. Let me access the demo servlets now. The first one is the default servlet. So I'm going and accessing with this specific page. That's fine. This is a HTML, but I am seeing demo default resource servlet. So it's accessing because I am accessing through this default selector. Then the next one is even for this specific DAM. Let me access with the same selector default.html. Yeah, it's accessing the default resource servlet. Now the next one is JSON servlet. I'm going and accessing with this URL. Yeah, here I am specifying the JCR content, then weekend.json. This is returning the JSON data. So from this demo JSON servlet. The next one is node type servlet. The node type is CQ page. So I'm accessing through this page selector. So let me go and access. Yeah, the demo node type based servlet responded for this request. Let me now access this opting servlet. So I'm using this selector again, opting.html. So I will go with this. Yeah, now if you see here, the opting servlet responded for this request. But if I change this maybe to FAQs, I will remove and I will try with the EN. But this is also same resource type, EN also. But that servlet won't respond for that. Let me try this. Yeah, the default servlet is responding here. So that's what the page is loaded. The next one is path based servlet. Let me access that through this. Yeah, the path based servlet is responding here. The next one is dynamic servlet. Let me access that. Yeah, it's going to the default servlet. The dynamic servlet is not accessed. So because we are not enabled any resource types for that servlet, let us do that. Go into this config manager and search for dynamic resource type servlet. Then open that. So selectors are there, dynamic. Now I'm going to enable the resource types. So maybe I will use this resource type, weekend components page. Then methods get is fine, extension HTML is fine for now. Let me save this. Let me go and access the servlet again with the same thing, en.dynamic.html. I'm going and accessing. Yeah, this time the dynamic resource type servlet responded. So even what you can do is maybe you can add additional selectors also. So if I go here, let me go to this. Even you can do the extension, but I will just test this. So if I say test and save, yeah, the servlet response for that selector also test. If I do it, then say, yeah, it's working. But if I say any other selector or extension, it won't work. If I do it test one, the default servlet will respond. So the page will be loaded. The next one is run mode specific servlet. Let me access that. here. Yeah, so it's saying like there is no resource found for this path. Now the reason is like the config is not enabled. Let me go to the OSGI console, then maybe if I go to the components, look for run mode based servlet, yeah, open that. If you see here no config, this is not active also. So if I open this, yeah, it's saying no config, it's not. So let me copy this PID. Let me go into this CRXTE. Okay, under weekend OSGI config, I'm going to enable this only for the publish run mode. So you can create wherever required, dev, prod, stage or author based on your requirement, but I am going to enable for all the publishers. So go here, just to right click, create node. So we should be creating a node of type sling : OSGI config, then just specify that PID. So it's fine now, click OK. This should be okay now. Now if I go back here and refresh this, servlet should be active now. Yeah, it's active. Now you go and again access the servlet. Yeah, it's saying run mode based servlet. As we discussed earlier, the servlet resolver service can be used to test the servlet resolution. Let us do that. Let me go into this OSGI console, then Sling, then here you can see Sling servlet resolver. That's fine. Let me resolve one of the servlet. I will go into this. Let me copy this maybe. Yeah, run mode based servlet. Just to paste it here. Yeah, I will remove this maybe. Yep, resolve. Yeah, this will say like the run mode based servlet class is responding to this request. Like this you can test all the servlets. Let us quickly see the servlet resolver related configuration. So let me go into this OSGI config, again config manager. Look for Apache Sling servlet, Apache Sling servlet. Yeah, servlet / script resolver and error handler. Here you can configure all this execution paths, cache size, then default extension for the servlets. The execution path define where the servlet script should be looked for. So start with bin, libs, apps, system. So every servlet should be defined with this path prefixes. Even you can define your own custom prefixes if required, but most of the cases this will be enough. Now default extension is HTML. If you want, you can add more default extensions also. Cache size, this defines the size of the cache used for script resolution. Let us quickly see the cached script resolutions. So for that, again, let me close this. Go to Sling, then you can find something called script cache status. Just click on that. So here you can see all this cached script resolution. So you can see like image list, item, whatever is. So if you want, you can remove this so that it will again resolve the script. When you can do a complete clear the cache. I hope this will help the beginners for learning. Feel free to give the feedback. Thanks all for watching the video. See you in the next video.